Do general nutrition guidelines frustrate you? If you'd like more specific targets, even to just better understand food labels, this video is for you. Today we'll cover macronutrients, carbohydrate, protein, and fat, and how much you might need for health. Macros alone don't make a healthy diet. We eat food, not nutrients. But understanding them gives you a foundation for sorting out nutrition myths. I'm Julie Scalisi, registered dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist in the US. In this video, I'll show you how to calculate your daily carbohydrate, protein, and fat targets based on your personalized calorie goal, and then some tips using that information. We'll begin with an accurate assessment for your daily calorie needs. Then I'll guide you in deciding your proportion for carbohydrate, protein, and fat. Next, we'll convert your macronutrients into daily gram targets, which is usable information. We will begin by assessing your calorie needs. Now, this is a complicated formula, so we're going to get some help with the internet. So where you search on the internet, go in and type calculator.net. Now this site really is just a calculator, no registering, signing up, or logging in. Under the Fitness and Health header, click on Calorie Calculator. When you get and open up calculator.net, this is what the calorie calculator should look like. Make sure that you are getting the US units and put in your age, your gender, your height, your weight, and the activity level. Do the drop down and fit the one that fits your activity level the best. Under settings, open that. If you click on it, it'll open it up to this menu. Make sure you're on calories, and wherever you are, use the Mifflin-St Jeor formula. And then press calculate. And bam, you got your calorie goal. This is the same formula that is validated and that dietitians use when we assess free living adults. So if you want to make an adjustment to this for weight loss, then from the choices that are on there, so consider choosing the mild weight loss calorie level to begin with. Now that you have your final daily calorie target, we're going to decide the proportion for these three nutrients. So starting with the general proportion of these three nutrients. This is a really wide range for carbohydrate, and it reflects evidence-based guidelines for long-term health. This range excludes extreme approaches like very low carb or very low fat diets, and those plans do not demonstrate durability of benefit over time. What has shown durability or sustained benefits for health is the Mediterranean eating style. By using the lower end of this calorie range from carb, so 40 or 45% of calories, it allows for more calories to come from healthy fats like extra virgin olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, and fish. Okay, now to decide how much from protein. If anything, this range may be higher than our minimum protein requirements. Yet protein can help satisfy appetite and lessen the post-meal blood glucose peak slightly. So generally choose between 20 and 30% of your calories from protein. So a couple of noteworthy mentions. If you're on a GLP or a twin incretin medication like Ozempic, Trulicity, or Mounjaro, consider using the higher end of the range, like 25 to 30% of your calories. These medications can support significant and rapid weight loss, which can reduce muscle mass, not just fat storage. So extra protein in your diet can kind of help preserve your muscle mass. Now, if you have chronic kidney disease, but perhaps stage 3B to 5, yet not on dialysis, consider the lower end of the percent range of protein for your nutrition formula. In general, we don't really need to be too picky about counting up protein, as it tends to work itself out when attending to carbohydrate and fat grams, as there aren't too many pure protein foods out there that don't include carb or fat in them also. Now getting to our final nutrient of fat for our three macronutrients. Generally, you want to have under 30% of your calories a day coming from fat. So I feel that kind of knowing what your maximum amount in a day kind of helps, because then if you're a little bit below that, big deal. But you have that much of a budget so that you can make sure and get healthy fats in your diet. In reviewing the calorie ranges that support a healthful diet, in using your best judgment, you've determined the percentage mix from what you've already learned. Before we move on, though, make sure that your totals add up to 100% from the three nutrients. We've made good progress so far. You have your personal calorie target, and you've decided how much is going to come from each macronutrient. Now to get those percentages into daily gram targets. I'll lead this change from percent to grams in two ways. For more tech-savvy viewers, simply going to your browser, and for those of the, not me and the internet, I like to do math old style. This math route can also help understand a bit more about these nutrients in our diet. Anyway, so if you just want to pop it in to a Google or a browser or AI, just ask the question of what you're after. I'm going to use this example. Find my macros for a 1,550 calorie diet based on 45% carb, 30% fat, and 25% protein. And then hit enter, and it's going to come up with the grams for you. So you're just looking for the gram numbers. And then write those down with your, along with your calorie level and your nutrient grams. Now to take on doing the math. So this will be over a few slides because it's several steps to do three different nutrients. I imagine you have already been taking some notes, and you're probably going to need a calculator too. There is a worksheet that you can download or print from the video prescription, yet that's really not going to be necessary because we're going to be going through the steps in pretty good detail, and they're all the same steps for each nutrient. We'll start with carbs. You've selected somewhere between 40 to 55% of your calories from carbohydrate. I will be using this nutrition example based on 1,550 calories, 45% carb, 25 protein, and 30% fat all the way through this. And yes, those do add up to 100%. And I just want to do one math reminder for changing percents into decimals. So whatever percent you chose, you just stick a decimal point in front of the number. And that's the number to stick in your calculator when we get to that part. You can see my examples on the page here. So whatever your calories are times the percent number that you want to use, that gives you how many calories from carb, and you divide that number by 4 to get how many grams a day. So in my example, it would be 1,550 times 0.45 equals, and then 700 divided by 4, and then I get 175 grams of carb a day. And so write that down because now you have that first piece of your macronutrients. For protein, I decided to use 25% protein on this example. So you would basically do this. So to put this protein information into grams, you take your calories and multiply it by the percentage of protein that you selected for your distribution of your nutrients, and then dividing that by 4, because just like carbohydrate, protein has 4 calories per gram. So in my example, from the 1,550 calories a day, In this, I had selected a 25% of the calories coming from protein. So that was 387 protein calories, dividing it by 4 to get it into grams. So for this recipe, it would be about 97 or roughly 100 grams of protein a day. So fat targets, here's the example. So I'm using 30% fat calories. So you're going to take the calories that you have a day times 0.3 if you chose 30%, and that's your calories from fat. Now, fat has a lot more calories per gram than protein and carbohydrate, so you have to divide it by 9 to get your grams of fat a day. So in the example, we got 1550 times 0.3 equals, and then divide that by 9, and that gives you your daily fat cap for the day. So there's also a subset of carbohydrate for fiber. And the US guidelines are 14 grams per 1,000 calories. So if you go 1550 calories or whatever yours is times 14, and that's going to equal some big number, divide it by 1,000, and that is going to give you the minimum amount of fiber that you should have a day. Now, typically, fiber is simplified to 30 to 50 grams a day. And it is part of the carbohydrate intake. You do not need to separate it out or think of it as a separate entity. It's just going to be part of real food. If you're eating real plants, whole grains, fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, you're going to get the right amount of fiber without ever having to think about it. So this is what my example looked like as far as a quote nutrition prescription. So based on 1,550 calories a day, that's 45% carb, 25% protein, and 30% fat. That ends up being 175 grams of carbohydrate, 22 of that as fiber at least, and not more than 97% protein, or in the ballpark, wide ballpark really, and trying to have under about 55 grams of fat a day. So nutrient grams does not equal food and beverages, which are the big decisions. We don't eat nutrients, we eat food. So having your macros do help with reading food labels and put some kind of priority in deciding portion sizes. But food quality is the real ticket to long-term health. So if you're liking what you're hearing, please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe for channel success. Also, watching a video at least halfway through helps, and that'll get this in front of more people who are searching for diabetes help on the internet. Here's a situation where your knowledge on fiber can come in handy. In my nutrition prescription example, the fiber calculated to at least 22 grams a day, or I'd probably round this up to the general goal of 30 grams. So armed with this info, let's say you decided you really wanted to boost up your fiber intake, and you decide to buy a fiber cereal. Now, a note on fiber cereals. They are fiber supplements disguised as cereal. They have had so much fiber added to them that they are not a food in its natural state. Fiber comes from plants. It's what keeps them in their shape. Generally, a plant food will naturally have about 2 to 7 grams of fiber for every 15 grams of total carbohydrate. Some fiber cereals will have 22 of 33 grams of carb as fiber. This can feel very uncomfortable once introduced to your gut in one sitting, and that's only if you ate one portion size from the food label. If inadequate hydration was along with it, it could cause a serious problem. So any efforts at increasing fiber should be done gradually and just naturally in the plants that we eat. So using what you learned about your protein, let's say that your gym coach recommended that you take a protein powder, to get big and strong. So you know that you need 97 grams a day, using the example that I've been using. And you've tracked your diet because you're curious now that you had these macros for yourself, and you already know that you get that much in your diet and you don't need to add an expensive protein powder. So I think you should go celebrate and buy yourself some 70% dark chocolate covered hazelnuts, or we call those filberts in the Pacific Northwest. Now here's an application for knowing what to do with your grams of carbohydrate a day. Using again the example from what I had been using, let's say your typical eating pattern is 2 meals and 1 snack a day, and you want to see how your post-meal blood sugars are going to do with your 175 grams of carbohydrate a day. So you decide, well, I want to stay with my typical way that I like to eat. So you decide to have 2 meals a day of 65 grams of carbohydrate and 1 snack for your 45 grams of carbohydrate. And then you can use your blood sugar changes after your meal, working with healthy food choices and the tips of how you can make your post-meal blood sugars be lower, and how's your body doing in tolerating that carbohydrate. And if you find that your blood sugars are still peaking a little higher than you would like, then maybe you decide, well, I'm going to try doing 2 meals and 2 snacks a day and reducing the load at each time that you eat, and seeing if you can kind of work that out in your schedule for the day. So these are practical ways that you can use grams for your nutrients to help sort out how to work in these healthy food tips. I do have a few links in my video description for a food list of carbohydrates. It's based on the amount of food for 15 grams of total carbohydrate. And this is from the CDC, and I did look at it recently. This would have been in March of 2026, and it is still a decent food list. There's also a link to a healthy plate method from Harvard, and it is just a really nice, simple idea for healthy eating that doesn't include any counting or calculating at all. If this is just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing to me, lady? And then there's also the math worksheet that I had talked about in figuring out the math that we did to kind of help guide if that got confusing. And also I did include just the snips of the scenarios that we talked about for using your carbohydrate, protein, and fat gram targets in daily life. All right, so for more food tips, please see my other videos, Food and Blood Sugar and Keep It Simple. And please share my channel with anyone that you think it may help. And for today, practice with patience. Have a great day.